Pussy Riot is a feminist punk rock protest group based in the capital of Russia, Moscow. In the summer of 2011, the group was founded. From the beginning, it was all just an activist art project, and one of the founders, Nadezhda Tolokonnikova, was a former member of Voina, a Russian street art group known for the provocative and politically charged works of performance art. The group contains of approximately 11 group members, who varies in age between 20 and 33 years old. They have got a lot of attention from their provocative guerrilla performances they usually stages in several different public locations in Russia. Pussy Riot is a revolt against President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the policy of the government, which Pussy Riot thinks is discriminating against women and other human rights. They stand for feminism, LGBT rights, and opposition to Vladimir Putin, whom the group considers a dictator. Despite the fact that Russian citizens today can move freely in and out of Russia, and that they mostly has the opportunity to express their opinions on the internet, the government is characterized by corruption. Critical voices are rarely heard in mass media and are often silenced by the authorities. The people who somehow threaten the state, and by that meaning human rights activists, critical journalists, and whistleblowers, are put in a risk to be exposed to violence and even sometimes murder. Rarely are offenders to account. According to Russian legislation, organizing of a demonstration requires informing the authorities about the demonstration in order to maintain public order. However, in practice, it's different. A more informal agreement with the permission of local authorities must be done, and it's really difficult to get permission. This has been criticized by, among others, the Russian Human Rights Ombudsman. Demonstrations have been denied permission, often with reference to safety are not guaranteed or even that it affects the transport infrastructure. The legalization cannot be considered directly discriminating against women. Discrimination against women will be expressed in other ways, not least through the traditional gender roles that are deeply rooted in the society. The salary for women is on an average of only 70% of men. Domestic abuse and other violence against women is a major problem. Violence against women in the homes accounts for about 2/3 of all murders in Russia. That is about 14,000 women annually. The Russian Interior Ministry estimates that about 34,000 women exposed to domestic violence every year. There's a widespread awareness, often also within the law enforcement agencies, that domestic violence is a private matter. The real figure is probably bigger. The widespread abuse of alcohol among Russian men is said to be one of the causes behind the violence. There are also no national plan or special authority responsible for monitoring either women's rights or issues of violence against women. Support for victims of domestic violence is also lacking.
Pussy Riot performed atop of Lobnoye Mesto stone platform in front of St. Basil's Cathedral and the tower in Red Square, Moscow. Russian police detained the punk group after they performed a protest song criticizing Vladimir Putin. On February 21, 2012, 5 women from the group entered the Cathedral of Christ, the Savior of the Russian Orthodox Church in Moscow, to protest against the re-election of Vladimir Putin. Pussy Riot performers put on colorful balaclavas, walked onto the altar and began to jump around, punching the air. They shouted out a punk prayer with lyrics such as "Holy shit, shit, Lord shit, Mother of God, Virgin Mary, drive Putin away," and the patriarch believes in Putin, bastard, better believe in God. The group's actions were eventually stopped by church security officials who escorted them outside. By that evening, the collective had turned the performance into a music video entitled "Punk Prayer, Mother of God, Chase Putin Away." The women said their protest was directed at the Orthodox Church leader's support for Putin during his election campaign. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church said the performers were doing the work of the devil. Several weeks after the cathedral stunt, which was broken up by church officials, Maria Alekina, Yekaterina Samuchevich, and Nadezhda Tolokonnikova were arrested and charged with hooliganism motivated by religious hatred. They were held without bail until their trial in late July, when they were convicted and sentenced to 2 years in prison. The women faced tough conditions inside Russia's prison system and had a number of parole requests turned down. The pair's sentences were due to the end in March 2014, but their release became inevitable in December after an amnesty law was signed by the Russian parliament, covering at least 20,000 prisoners, including mothers. Mr. Putin's critics see the amnesty as a bid to avoid controversy over showing Russia's hosting of the Winter Olympics in February. Maria Alekina, the first of the duo to be freed from jail, told the Russian TV channel that the amnesty was a PR stunt and she would rather have remained in prison. The case divided Russia, with many feeling the women were being too harshly treated and made examples of as part of attempts to clamp down on opposition to the government. Many Russians were outraged by Pussy Riot's church protest and supported the right of the majority to worship in peace. Of those following the case, 86% favored some form of punishment, ranging from prison to forced labor or fines, while 5% said they should not have been punished at all. In the European and American press, there was almost universal disapproval of the 2-year sentence imposed on the 3 members of the group. While many newspaper writers and opinion columns were critical of the performance in the cathedral, very few thought a 2-year prison sentence was appropriate punishment, arguing that the action should have been treated as a public order crime and punished by a fine or community service. The trio's fate attracted much international attention. Musicians like Sting, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Madonna, and Yoko Ono called for their release, while human rights group designated them prisoners of integrity. Pussy Riot's typical colored balaclavas became a widely recognized symbol, and people from other countries in the world started protesting, supporting Pussy Riots by also wearing those. On June 30, 2013, Vladimir Putin signed a bill imposing jail terms and fines for insulting people's religious feelings, which some have seen as a response to the punk prayer performed by the Pussy Riot in the Moscow cathedral. Pussy Riot was also attacked in Sochi by the Cossack militia armed with horsewhips. The fights came a day after band members Nadezhda Tolokonnikova and Maria Alekina were held by police in the Russian Black Sea resort for several hours in connection with a theft case. The latest fracas over their stay in Sochi came as the International Olympic Committee warned the women that it would be wholly inappropriate to stage actions outside Winter Olympic venues. The event took place as Tolikonikova, Alekina, and one other Pussy Riot member wanted to stage an action in the center of Sochi, about 30 kilometers north of the main Olympic park. They put on the colored balaclavas and tied that are their group's trademark, but were immediately surrounded by uniformed security personnel who appeared to be Cossacks. The women were whipped frequently with horsewhips and roughly hit. At one point, one of the members was thrown to the ground and her coat thrown on the top of her. Several uniformed Cossacks acting as security guards in Sochi pulled the women's ski masks off, punched them frequently, and whipped them.
So, have Pussy Riot been treated right according to the human rights? One of the first articles in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, number 3 to be precise, reads, "Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person." Firstly, homosexuality is an extremely taboo in Russia. However, Pussy Riot wants LGBT people to be accepted and stands up for their rights. To have the right to your own sexuality is to have the right to a liberty of person. In 2013, Putin introduced an anti-gay law that meant that the propaganda of non-traditional relationships for youths was forbidden. It got a lot of attention from all over the world, especially from liberal countries that have an open climate for all sexual orientations. For example, during the World Championship in Moscow, the Swedish high jumper Emma Green attended the competition wearing rainbow-colored nails, which stands for LGBT movements. To this, the Russian pole vaulter Yelena Isinbayeva answered that it was a disrespectful act, since Russia does not want to have problems such that people become homosexuals. Secondly, Pussy Riot has had difficulties to demonstrate and implement their actions to express their opinions. Russian police is characterized by corruption and are generally against Pussy Riot's opinions, since they are controlled by Putin. For example, Pussy Riot have been assaulted during their performances without getting justice for it. Having the freedom of speech is important, and it's also a component of the right to liberty and security of person. When expressing your opinions, you should not be beaten or ill-treated, particularly not by the police or other authorities. Instead, they earn the right to be protected in order to be able to express their opinions. In a democracy like Russia is in theory, it's important that everyone should have equal opportunities to express their opinions, and the government should not prevent the opportunity for some and give it to others, just because they doesn't follow their opinions. Otherwise, it's not a real democracy. As previously mentioned, it's difficult to criticize the government of Russia, especially in media like television and newspapers. To hold this kind of demonstration in middle of the street, like Pussy Riot does, is one of the options available in order to express your views. Last but not least, 3 members of Pussy Riot were sentenced to 2 years in prison for hooliganism. By judging from the movies and pictures from the event that brought charges on Pussy Riot, it's not a crime that should give 2 years in prison. Hooliganism is defined as when someone rioting, vandalizing, and bullying. And despite the fact that their name contains the word riot, their performance in the cathedral was not that extreme. They did not vandalize or cause much of a riot. On the other hand, what he did could be pursued as discriminating and disrespectful against the church and the Christian religion. While Pussy Riot fights for freedom of speech, LGBT rights, women and children rights, staging a performance in a church and disturbing other people praying and practicing their religion. It's like saying their beliefs are acceptable to discriminate, but not women's. But still, it's a human right to be treated fair and not be falsely convicted due to the fact that your opinions do not follow the regime's. The punishment of 2 years in prison was absurdly hard for what they did, especially in comparison to the fact that guards abusing Pussy Riot wasn't even charged.
Following the agreement between the High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, and the government of the Russian Federation, a human rights presence was established within the United Nations country team in the Russian Federation in January 2006. The High Commissioner's 2 visits to the Russian Federation in 2005 and 2006 provided opportunities to consolidate and strengthen the cooperation with national partners. Throughout the year 2007, comprehensive consultations concerning contents and forms of longer-term cooperation to promote human rights in the Russian Federation took place with OHCHR's counterparts in Moscow. As a result, a framework for cooperation with the Russian Federation for 2007 and beyond was elaborated and approved through an exchange of letters between the High Commissioner and the Minister of Foreign Affairs in August 2007. The framework clusters around 4 areas: rule of law, equality and tolerance, education and information on human rights, and mainstreaming human rights within the UN country team in the Russian Federation. Then we have 2010's activities of OHCHRs in Russia. In 2010, an international forum on business and human rights held in Moscow on with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. The special representative of the UN Secretary General on the issue of human rights and transnational corporations and other business enterprises, Professor John Ruggie, came to Moscow for the first time to lead the forum. Inter-University Resource Center for Human Rights Studies opened in the premises of the People Friendship University of Russia in the framework of the Joint Human Rights Master Program. Guest lectures of human rights experts from EIUC, European Inter-University Center for Human Rights and Democratization, organized for the students of the master program at Russian partners universities. In August 2010, a review meeting on the pilot phase of the Human Rights Masters program conducted with the participation of EIUC. The first year of the program has received high evaluation. Its lessons and achievements were discussed. The new course started in September-October 2010. A roundtable on the Universal Periodic Review process and its recommendations to the Russian Federation held in July 2010 together with the Russian International Law Association at the Chamber of Accounts of the RF. All major UN human rights instruments and OHCHR publications available in Russian compiled into a special edition of a CD-ROM and presented to the public during the Moscow International Book Fair at the All Russia Exhibition Center on September 1st to 6, 2010. The CD-ROM is expected to support the work of government bodies, academia, and civil society organizations working in the area of human rights. It will also be distributed to libraries, including the regions where access to the internet is not widespread.